From Anshe Sfard Beth El Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of the nullification of Chametz. What is this idea that the rabbis have that bodek tzarich shivatel, that a person who's doing the bedikat Chametz, checking for Chametz, trying to clear his house from Chametz, he needs to do bitul. He needs to nullify his Chametz. What does that mean, to nullify your Chametz? How can you merely with words somehow render the Chametz ownerless, render the Chametz like dust, like dirt of the earth? What does that mean to nullify Chametz? There's a basic debate between Rashi and the Rambam on the one hand, and the Tosfot on the other, as to whether you can nullify in your heart. Is this a declaration that's supposed to be made, or is this something you do simply in your heart? In the Talmud it says, tzarich shivatel, you must annul. It doesn't say whether it's with words or not. Rashi says that bevitul v'alma, he says, after all, it says in the Torah, you should stop the chametz, tashbitu, make it cease and exist and desist. So he says, hashpata de levi, hashpata, making it stop to exist in your heart, that's considered making it stop. Tosfot very much disagree, and they said, what are you talking about? When we say you should make the chametz cease and desist, that's talking about burning it. Whether you have to burn it with fire, or we're talking whether you could throw it in the ocean, but the point is that that's physical destruction. When we talk about bitul, when we talk about nullification, Tosfot claims we're talking about a process which relates to monetary matters, and that is to declare it ownerless, hefker, that I hereby declare that this property is ownerless. The Rambam takes Rashi's approach. He says, Ma yesh batazu, what is this destruction that the Torah demands? Shivat lenu bilibo, that you should destroy it in your heart, annul it in your heart. Yachshov oto kafar, that you should consider it to be dust, dirt. You should consider that you have no chametz in your property at all. Now the Tosfot say, well, it's really a matter of declaring it ownerless. He says, well, it's true that usually when you declare something ownerless, you have to do it in front of 3 people. You have to tell someone that it's ownerless. You have to tell someone it's not yours anymore if you want it not to be yours. Well, here we could be more lenient. Why could we be more lenient? As the Ramban explains, he says, look, really the chametz, the leavened bread, it's not really yours. You can't eat it. You can't benefit from it. You can't sell it. In what sense is it yours? Torah says if it's in your property, you violate it. So if I simply, in my mind, say it's not mine, I don't want it to be mine, I hereby declare that I don't want it to have anything to do with it, then sure enough, that is considered nullified, that disassociates me from my chametz. Now, the question is as follows. What is this idea of bitul, of nullification? Where do we get this idea? Where else does this come up? Where else in halakha can you simply declare that something is null and void and somehow that works? Before we get to that, we should mention that in the Jerusalem Talmud, they are more clear about this. Whereas Rashi said you could annul it in your heart, and Tosfot is talking about a declaration with your mouth, the Jerusalem Talmud is clear. That same Rav in our Talmud who says you must annul, he says you have to say as follows. You have to say, Kol chametz sheyesh li betoch beiti, any chametz I have in my house, if I'm not aware of it, yibatel, may it be null. So he speaks about an actual speaking out of this idea, that you have to say that it is annulled. But again, what is this bitul? Our text of the nullification that we say, firstly it's in Aramaic, for some strange reason we don't use the Hebrew text of the Jerusalem Talmud, but rather we say it in Aramaic, and we say both kehefker, it should be like ownerless, and yibatel ka'afar dar, that it should be like nothing, like the dust of the earth. We use both forms. Now, if we ask where else in Jewish law do we find such a thing? So here we turn to a totally different area of Jewish law, avodah zarah, in idolatry. Let's say there's an idol. An idol is made out of gold. Gold can be very valuable. After all, no one worships this idol anymore anyway. And I bought somehow I landed out with this idol. The idolaters are gone, and now I have this idol. You mean I can't use this gold and silver? He says, well, if a Gentile, if the idol worshiper himself says, I don't want this anymore, he steps on it, he throws it, he breaks the nose, even if he just spit at it, he says, you're no good, you didn't save me, or he urinated in front of it, or on top of it, something like that. Somehow he shows it's not a sanctified thing anymore, it's not his idol, he doesn't worship it anymore. Then the Mishnayot in Avodah Zarah, on Nun Bet Amud Bet, Nun Gimel Amud Aleph 53a, say very clearly that there is something called nullification. So it's interesting. Both Chametz and idolatry can be nullified. What does it mean? What's the connection? The answer is that idolatry and Chametz are very much connected. Where else in the Torah do we have something you have to, not only you can't eat it, but you have to destroy it? Idolatry. Torah tells us when we come to the land of Israel, we have to destroy all the idols. It's a ban. It's something you have to despise and destroy. And in fact, why? What is the idea of not eating chametz? What does it have to do with the exodus from Egypt? Because in Egypt, says Yechezkel, we used to worship idols. And then when we went out of Egypt, we symbolically destroyed our chametz, a symbol of Egypt. Egypt, which invented the idea of bread, the idea of leavening. And we should annul our association with Egypt and our association with the idolatry. And when it comes to idolatry, there's such a thing as bitul, such a thing as nullification. And therefore, the rabbis took that from the area of law known as idolatry, and they applied it to the area of chametz, which is related to idolatry, and said that we could annul that as well. But ultimately, on Pesach, we want to not only annul the chametz, we want to annul the notion of idolatry, the notion that somehow the human being and all his great accomplishments, we go to the moon and all of our great accomplishments, that these are somehow make us so great that somehow we forget our humility before the master of the universe. That's what we need to annul. It's a nullification of that haughty and puffy part of myself that thinks it's greater than it is, that forgets that he's mortal. Bitul chametz. What is this nullification of chametz? Reminds us of the nullification of idolatry. Reminds us to annul, to render less than significant all those things in our lives that we somehow put up on this pedestal, that somehow this is supremely important. That's what it means to annul the chametz, to take all the puffy things in life, to annul them and declare, you know what? I know what's important in life. And all these other things, they're just puff, they're just idolatry. They're just part of the haughtiness of man, they're part of the foolishness of man, part of the short-sightedness of man. Therefore, when I can annul that, I can truly be said to have a home not only clear and clean of chametz, but also clear and clean of idolatry, and clear and clean of haughtiness, and clear and clean of a subversion of Jewish values. Thank you for joining us here at the Anshe Sephardi Beth El congregation here in Memphis, Tennessee, for our discussion of chametz. Many videos about Pesach, videos about holidays, and videos also about various parshiot. You're welcome to join us each week. Thank you very much.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit ASBEE.org.